The Southeastern Chorale, conducted by Dr. Stacy Weger, Director of Choral Activities, will now perform Hymn to the Gold and Blue. Thank you, Dr. Weger and Chorale. We have in our audience this afternoon the man who wrote this hymn, Dr. Walter Britt, Professor Emeritus, Department of Music. Dr. Britt, will you please stand? Thank you for being here today, and thank you for sharing your talent with us. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to a celebration of Southeastern's Founders Day. Just think, 104 short years ago, we were just getting started. I am Vicki Hudson, a member of our Founders Day Committee, and at this time, I want you to meet the other members of our fine group. Committee members, will you please stand as I call your name and remain standing until everyone has been introduced. Then we'll applaud each other at the same time. That's a hint for y'all to applaud for us because we worked hard, all right? Dyanna Bowen. In the back there, Cathy Conway, Ellen Hendrix, Scott Hensley, Stephanie Makke, Ross Walkup, Susan Webb, Stacy Weger, Sadie Woodruff, and two ladies that have pitched in and helped us. They're not in the group, but they came to our rescue anyway. We call them our two peachy keen ladies, but you'll have to wait and see what that means later on. Courtney McGill and Mary Lynn Mead. This is our group, and we appreciate all that you all have done. Thank you. And now on to our program. I am so excited to introduce Dr. L. David Norris, Professor Emeritus, Department of Social Sciences, and a noted historian who has spent a great deal of time and energy making Southeastern history come alive for us. Dr. Norris was a popular and well-respected professor of history here at Southeastern from 1969 until his retirement in 2004. He earned a bachelor's degree from Southern Arkansas State University, a master's degree from Arkansas State University, and his PhD at Southern Illinois University. Most importantly for us, in 1986, he published a book titled A History of Southeastern Oklahoma State University since 1909, Volume 1. And this afternoon, he is going to share from his book about the first years of Southeastern. Please welcome back our own Dr. David Norris.
Excuse me, I have some water. Some of the medicine I take sometimes makes my mouth dry. I promised her it's not vodka, but sometimes I lie. Okay. Anyway, I asked before this started that were you going to have this every year? And the answer was yes. They hope to and do by decades or whatever. So I chose because they've chosen the peach cooking contest and idea. I decided that we would talk about the area of the university, and then next year, myself or someone can talk about the fight that it took to establish this institution here, fighting places like no less than you would imagine, of course, East Central, okay, and Ardmore, which Ardmore hasn't given up yet, wanting a university, a freestanding. You know, you got to watch them. They're very sneaky over there. Now they call that thing the University Center of Southern Oklahoma. If you're not careful, you drop that word center, and what do you got? Okay? Remember, Central State changed their name. You know, so we have to watch those people over there. They've been trying forever to get their own university, and I'm sure we're going to fight to the very end to keep it from it. Ada got East Central as an afterthought. Okay? It was kind of a consolation prize. They couldn't win the main battle. All right? So I'll leave that story for next year. And I will talk about the different dates real quickly. I always said there's only about 5 dates worth remembering in the history of the world. That if you could remember those dates, you could pretty much intelligently talk about anything. And so as a historian, I hated dates. You know, there's nothing to me that was worse than making people memorize a bunch of dates that they were going to forget for no reason. So here I violate my own rule. I'm going to talk about dates. Okay? And that's the why certain days are considered Founders' Day that we could pick. There are 4 dates that we could pick. We could pick March 5th, 1909, today. We could pick March 6th, 1909. We could pick March 23rd, 1909. Or we could pick, as they chose to a year ago, with the actual opening of the doors on June 14th, 1909. And the reason for all these dates, first of all, the most important date in the history of Oklahoma is when? How many from Oklahoma? Okay, so I'm preaching to the choir. You know all this. Okay, what's the most important date in the history of Oklahoma? You think statehood? Yeah. Somebody could argue territorial government, but statehood would be the date. And of course, all of you knew that was November 16th, 1907. And the point of bringing that up to you is, you may have forgotten that immediately all kinds of cities got into fights about wanting institutions of some kind. Why? Why would they want an institution? Say a prison. That was the most coveted. Why? It's like an undertaker. There's always going to be business. Okay? Prisons, there's always going to be what? Unfortunately. There's always going to be a need for those, I'm afraid, too. So there are also charitable institutions like for the deaf, the blind. There's also other kinds of charitable institutions, and then there are universities and normal schools. And by the way, while I'm on that, what is a normal school? Yeah, it's to train teachers, as a matter of fact. So that makes, this building is by far, of course, the most important one on campus. It is what you call, a lot of people call Morrison. I refuse to call it that, okay? I'll call it that when we have to talk about it in conversation, but to me, this building is Old Main or Old Central. And on most campuses, they don't name that building after somebody. The man it is named after certainly deserved to have a building named after him, but I wouldn't have named this building. I would have left it Old Main or Old Central, but they didn't ask me at the time. And I was real disappointed. But anyhow, point is there's big fight, man, to get these institutions. The answer to the question is, surely somebody said out there, money. Okay? Institutions mean money. For a city like Durant, if you get an educational institution, you know, altruistically, we could say we wanted it to train teachers. And I think next year, whoever's doing this, if they read the first chapter of my book, it's not me, then they can talk easily about this battle and the fact that people in Durant sincerely wanted an educational institution. They sincerely wanted that. Plus, they were smart enough to realize they were going to put the prison somewhere near the central part of the state, somewhere in that general vicinity. But they really wanted an educational institution. But what does that mean? It means people come here to go to school, and you spend an awful lot of money. Okay? Until the Choctaw Nation located its headquarters here. Where is the Choctaw Nation, by the way, headquarters? Where? OPC, what is that? Oklahoma Presbyterian College, and it ended up being for women, ultimately. But that beautiful building out there that's the Choctaw headquarters, is in fact the first university in this town, first college in this town. And it's beautifully preserved, thankfully, because the Choctaws chose to buy it and to have it. But until the Choctaw Nation arrived, by far, what was the biggest industry in Durant? Southeastern Oklahoma State University, from day one. So they knew it would fill up the rooming houses, they knew it would help the merchants, blah, 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 besides all the altruistic reasons. Well, anyway, next year they can talk about the fight, because the fight between Ada and Durant and things we said about each other are a lot of fun, okay? They actually got in fistfights on the floor of the Capitol over locating these institutions. But back to the dates, we could pick March 5th because that is the day that a bill was steamrolled through the House of Representatives, and then it was a Friday, and it was supposed to be left until the next Monday. But one person from here said no, and he was the man really behind the power to get this thing done. And his name was William A. Durant, not Dixon, but William A. Durant. Anyway, he used his friends in the Senate and his power to but get the Senate to act late in the day. So it happened late in the day on the 5th. The only thing is, when a bill is passed, I'm sure you remember from your study of government, if it's got any amendments to it, or if it originated in one house, like this bill originated in the House of Representatives and then went to the Senate, then when you're finished with that bill and it's ready to be acted upon, it has to be what's called engrossed and actually put on the calendar for the governor. And so what happened is the Senate was very late, and we don't know. You can't tell from the newspaper clippings from that time whether or not the Senate went past midnight, on the actual vote, or whether or not it was just so late that they decided, the next day, because each house has a group of people that you could call basically proofreaders. And they are the people that make sure that that bill is everything, the T's are crossed and the I's dotted and all of that. So when it goes to the governor, he doesn't sign something or refuse to sign something because there's something wrong in it. So the bill didn't get engrossed and enrolled till the next day. So that's why there are two dates there, okay? It's just a matter of time and how. Used to, it was legal whenever we were running out of legislative time, what the legislature would do. Do any of you out there remember at all that are a little bit older how they would get by adjourning? They would cover the clock up. Yep, they'd cover the clock up. And time just stopped in Oklahoma. It's all there is to it. Well, anyway, that's the reason for the 2 days that are so close. So you could pick what you want, but the act actually passed on the 5th, so I agree with that. The 23rd is the other date, and that's the date, makes sense that what happened. The governor signed the bill. And the governor at that time, Charles Haskell, he didn't want any institutions at all, and he particularly didn't want any down in this area, and it was hard for him to do, so he just got mad about the whole damn thing. All right? And went into he didn't go to a hissy fit, he just pouted because he signed the bill. He had to. There's nothing else he could do. William A. Durant and his colleagues had taken care of that. So then, after he signs it, in between the 6th and the 23rd, on the 13th of May, we have this huge celebration down here. And we have railroads coming in, special trains, and they're met with bands. And there are parades up and down Main and a big, big celebration out at the Elks Lodge with the orchestra and all these kinds of things. And the only person invited that didn't come that we know of was, guess who? The governor just couldn't make it, all right? And the last date is June 14th. That's the day we opened our doors for the first summer enrollment, okay? So if there's ever been any confusion about those dates, primarily probably because of me or something I said, then Harold Harmon has now got it straight. and we'll make sure no mistakes are made. All right. The second thing I want to talk about just one moment. See, Vicki only gave me an hour and 15 minutes. Okay? So I have to hurry along here. If there's a statue to somebody on this campus, it should be to William A. Durant. All right? Next year, we'll talk about why so much. I've talked enough today about him that you have an awfully good idea. But he really does deserve to have that statue on this campus. Matter of fact, if you read about him in the newspapers, he's called the patron saint of Southeastern. Not only for getting it, but from keeping it from the next governor, Lee Cruz, was from guess where? Ardmore. And guess what he wanted to do, pouting? He wanted to close all the normals except 2. It wouldn't have been here that was open, but William A. Durant and a couple other things happened. He didn't get his way about that either. So they've been pouting over there forever. Okay? Now, if that sounds like I don't care for their efforts, I don't. I don't care, you know. This is Southeastern's territory. That's what it was assigned the way it should be. Anyway, William A. Durant, while I'm speaking of that, this town is named for the wrong person. Okay? It's named for Dixon Durant, and technically that's okay. It's okay. But actually, the person who established this town was his father, Fisher Durant. And people get mixed up who these people are and where they lived and things along those lines. And so the story goes generally in publications that a boxcar was put on the Katy Railroad in 1872. It came through 1879. It was named Durant Station. And so therefore it was named after Dixon Durant. Well, the truth of the matter is that his father didn't die until 76. Okay? So if they named it in 72, Durant Station, people, do you think there's a chance that a son would step before his father and the town would be named after him while his father's still alive and the first person to put the first home in Durant? I don't think so. Okay, I think it's just confusion with the past. You know, in another way, Dixon Durant is very important. We have a park over here and it has a plaque that says that that's the home of Dixon Durant. That's not right. Okay? It's not wrong, but it's not right. That home was actually his father's homestead, the original. And so when his father died, you know, Dixon was actually had an 8-room house between 1st and 2nd Street where Market Square is now. And an orchard down 3rd and 4th Street in that area there. And so when his father died, he bought out his other brothers, and eventually, after living in a pretty fine home there, he finally came to his father's home, and that's where he died. Okay? The only other thing we did wrong is we need to put up another plaque that says, this is the site of the home, except it's on the other corner. Okay? And I'm not being critical. I'm just telling you things that have come to light that weren't there when people did things, you know, with really great intention. So, really and truly, Dixon Durant was, in fact, the person when the land was opened up and the city began to really grow. So, in that way, it's like picking what date for, you know, the day of opening Southeastern. But the first home, the first things that happened were really Fisher Durant, and it was his home that was over here until he died, and then it was inherited by Dixon. So, those Durants help. This William A. Durant is their cousin. And he's the first lawyer in town. He's a mixed blood. And he got his education in the Choctaw schools. He ended up getting his law degree at Arkansas. And he eventually ended up as the Secretary of the State Land Commission, meaning he ran the thing. And then he ended up as the principal chief of the Choctaws, okay, appointed by President Roosevelt. So this was some person. And so next year we talk about him and the other men and women who really had to fight to get this place. The last thing I'll talk about is what Vicki wanted me to talk about, which is peaches. Okay? The reason is this was a pure and simple, a 20-acre peach orchard where we're now located. Okay? It belonged to a doctor named J.L. Schuler. And, of course, there's all kinds of stories about, you know, there were 4 or 5 properties that were offered, but this property was selected. Okay? And we'll never know behind the scenes if there was anything else going on as to why it was picked. But and there's a good reason to think that maybe it was, because it got after they accepted it where it was to be, then some of the other promoters protested and almost threw this thing into another nightmare until the city council and Leon Sheriff, who's here, who knows about city councils, and Jerry Tomlinson, the mayor, and that sort of thing, they got busy in a hurry. And I don't know what they did with those people, but all of a sudden the protests dropped. And we went ahead and this thing went through. So it was a peach orchard. If you walk out, why here? If you walk out the front door and look, if you take away the trees, by the way, where were the trees around this part of the city? Not any that you're used to seeing. Okay, there have been a few here. There would have been behind us because of Chuckwaw. Down here, as Popular and Sycamore intersect 3rd Street, there was what's called Schuler's Lake. That's actually still a creek that runs under there, and if you don't know that, there was a big lake and natatorium down there, a swimming-like pool, okay? And you can go down there and see where the stream still flows at the intersection of 3rd, 4th, 5th to 6th, and you lose it at 7th, right there by the high school practice field, or the old high school. So, what would you see? Well, you'd see a heck of a lot, because basically from here downtown, except for one more rise, it's prairie. If you think of all South Durant, as far as you can think about, it's what? Prairie. A lot of it's high as a man to waist. If you go west and northwest, what do you get? Prairie. Okay? So you walk out the door, what's the first thing? You walked out this door and looked straight. What's the first thing you'd see that you would notice? You would see the original city's water tower. So the promoters of this site put a platform up where Russell is, the heart and soul of the teaching corps and the university. They put a big platform up there, so when the guys got up, E.D. Cameron, the state superintendent of education, and the other committee members, they could see literally all the way to the town of Durant. And we could too if we'd take away all these trees that have been planted in the last 100+ years, except down along that 3rd, 4th Popular Sycamore area and across, okay, or down here by Chuckwaw, okay? So this was by far the most beautiful and by far the most magnificent view of this city, you know. And when you walk outside, it's hard to believe, but you look, you'll see an original tower and that sort of thing. But of course, being a peach orchard, it grew what? Peaches, right? And so today we're going to have a peach cook-off, all right? Then next year, whoever's talking to you, maybe they can tell you about the fun between the legislative battle and all those things behind the scenes, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Norris. Now, I think that's a really cool story about the peach orchard. Dr. Norris shared a bit of our past with us, and now Dr. McMillan will share his thoughts about the vision and future of Southeastern. Dr. Douglas McMillan serves as Vice President for Academic Affairs at Southeastern. He joined the university in 1990 and has served in such capacities as Professor of Psychology and Counseling and Vice President for Educational Outreach and Project Development. Dr. McMillan earned his PhD at Oklahoma State University, his master's at the University of Southern Mississippi, and his bachelor's at Midwestern State University. Please welcome Vice President for Academic Affairs, Douglas McMillan.
Dr. Meek sends his regrets. He is sick today, and if you know him, you know that that doesn't often stop him or keep him away from from Southeastern. So we wish him a speedy recovery. And he made a quick call to the bullpen, and all of a sudden the bullpen got real scarce, and I was the only one there. So, no, seriously, it's a great afternoon, and it's so much fun to think about our founding as an institution. You know, Southeastern has meant so much to this area over the years, and we were talking before the Founders Day celebration about what an integral part of this area Southeastern has been, and how generations of first generation college students come to Southeastern, and sometimes they come here with some extra work to do to get up to the college level, but they come with a really good work ethic and are bright students, and it's just a joy to serve this area. And it's been a joy for generations for Southeastern to be of service to this area. Thank you for joining us for Founders Day as we celebrate our rich past and our important heritage and look ahead to promising future. As we continue our program, let me first thank Dr. David Norris for those interesting comments and that story. We have a rich history, and it's just fun to hear it and think about it and enjoy it again. Thank you very much. It's truly a privilege for me to stand before you today in historic Montgomery Auditorium. For more than a century, Southeastern Oklahoma State University has been a part of Durant. From its humble beginnings in 1909, March 5th, 6th, or 23rd, I wrote those down, to this day, this institution has been warmly embraced and nourished by this community and by this region. We certainly owe a debt of gratitude to those who came before us, those professors. I think I'm going to start this a different way. Those students, those professors, administrators, and staff members who built the foundation for what is now Southeastern. As I've said many times before, what sets Southeastern apart from other institutions are the people, and our history reflects that. We're indeed fortunate to have a faculty and a staff that truly care about the success of our students. In fact, if you talk with alums from Southeastern, you'll hear almost immediately their recollection of some special relationship they had with a professor or a fellow student or someone that on the staff that took extra time to help them out. Those stories are abundant, and they're clear that this institution has a tradition of really nurturing students. We're indeed fortunate to have this tradition, and it's demonstrated every day by the strong work ethic that's here. Over the years, Southeastern has produced thousands of graduates and equipped those individuals with the knowledge and expertise to lead productive lives in their chosen professions. And when you think about the multiples of generations that have been taught by teachers from Southeastern, you can begin to see what a huge footprint this institution has had. Whether it be education, medicine, aviation, business, or any other field they might choose, Southeastern has truly had an impact on Durant and the surrounding area. We've grown to the point where we now serve 4,000 students at 8 locations in 2 states. We really just count that one state. We won't let Texas know that we annexed them not long ago. Southeastern's vision continues to be a leader and one of an innovator in higher education through strong academic and student life programs with a solid liberal arts and sciences program and a foundation including major initiatives in student enrichment, expansion beyond a regional image, optimizing the learning environment, and working through partnerships with such great partners as the Choctaw Nation. We have a long history together. Our mission can be captured very simply: to create an environment enabling students to reach their highest potential through excellence in teaching, challenging academic programs, and co-curricular activities. Our vision and mission are reflected in 5 basic strategic commitments: academic excellence, diversity, facilities, funding, recruitment, and retention. I'm going to add another one on there: educating our students and caring about them. That's what you hear when you talk to people that have been here. I'm proud to say that as a university, we've stayed true to our academic mission and core in making some tough decisions, especially in a rough time for higher education in our nation. We're in the middle of a paradigm shift where states are no longer able to support institutions like Southeastern at the same level that we once were. But Southeastern is already rising to that new challenge and that new day in higher education. We've not compromised in achieving and maintaining 20 different academic program accreditations. We also continue to address the ever-changing challenges in higher education. Over the past 100 years, Southeastern has faced some unique challenges and has always risen to meet those challenges. In the early days, it was constructing facilities and putting roofs over classrooms, and those were the major obstacles that we faced at that time. Today, we face challenges unheard of a century ago. Who would have ever dreamed that we would become familiar with such terms as distance learning and physical cliff and the S word, sequester? Our people make Southeastern unique, and I assure you that Southeastern will survive and thrive through any and all challenges. We have the history to prove it, but most importantly, we have the people to do it. Moving forward together, the future is bright. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President McMillan. It's an exciting time to be making our own history here at Southeastern. As you've heard today, the City of Durant has been an outstanding and very important partner of Southeastern since the very beginning. Today, we are happy to have as our guest Mayor Jerry L. Tomlinson to present a proclamation from the City of Durant. Mayor Tomlinson has served on the Durant City Council since 1998 and is currently in his 6th term as mayor. His public service career also includes service on the Durant School Board. He is employed as a director with the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. Please welcome Mayor Jerry L. Tomlinson.
Thank you, Miss Vicki. Certainly a joy, pleasure, and an honor for me to be here today, to be invited here today. I don't think Miss Vicki gave me an hour and a half, Dr. David, but I do want to take a couple of minutes, if I can, before I present to this fine university and these folks a proclamation from the City of Durant. You have, not only as a judge of the peach cook-off contest today in your presence, but you have a former mayor and the most senior serving city council member in the state of Oklahoma, Mr. Leon Scher. Leon, would you stand up? If he had cooked the peach cobbler, I know who would win. Dr. David, thank you for some very interesting history notes. I can imagine how busy a city council would have been in 1909. Just thinking in terms of winning the site and location of a university. Dr. McMillan, I think you're okay with the Texas thing because Chief Powell often refers to that as the Baja of Oklahoma. And actually, just today, or late yesterday and today, I made an attempt to change the history of Oklahoma. As you hear me read this proclamation, and I like to read the proclamations historically, if you've been around very long, you know that I like to do that. It tells us why we're here and what it's all about. But as I reviewed this in the last few days, the date of the entry of our state was not what I recalled from at least what I thought was my history learning. I thought Oklahoma was the 47th state. That's what I remember being taught, I thought. So I made a call to City Hall again, and actually I called my wife and said, honey, and I don't even know how to do this Google thing, but I asked her to at least Google that and check that out, that I didn't think it was the 46th state. Well, she called me back and said it's the 47th state. So I called City Hall. I'm trying to get this thing changed. And then Iris, whom some of you are familiar with, Googled it, I guess, and what she was coming up with, it certainly was the 46th state. I'm still thinking this is not right. So I asked my wife to Google it again. And I think she punched in like what state is Oklahoma or something like that. And it comes up and says it's the 47th state. But now if you read just below it, it'll tell you New Mexico is also the 47th state. So I'm confused. So we did a little more research, and 46 is right, for those of you that may have had the same question I had. So I didn't get to change history, but Google doesn't have it right. I want to just expand a little bit, too, on what this university has meant to this community since 1909. And I can only tell you what it's meant with my actual involvement particularly since 1998, becoming a member of the City Council and consequently serving several terms here now as the mayor. And I might add, Dr. David is a former mayor and just preceded me, as a matter of fact. So thank you for your service again, Dr. David. But in my time to be personally associated with the university, over the last few years, it's just been a super trip. Not only for me personally, but for this community, this county, this area, and this university. The growth we've seen, the physical buildings, the enrollment, and I think we enjoyed increased enrollment and may still be enjoying increased enrollment on an annual basis. But in all of that, and you'll hear me mention this word often, but it takes partnerships. And I can only imagine that those partnerships were formed truly back in 1909 with the local residents and with that city council and those leaders back then. And it's been an honor for me to have had the opportunity to serve with your presidents and most recently with Dr. Minks. And we're so sorry to hear he's not feeling well today. But it's just been a great opportunity for the city and its citizens. And then, as Dr. McMillan referred to often, the education process of it, the students. They've benefited the most. So in saying all of that, I have a proclamation from the city of Durant. Whereas in 1907, or in November of 1907, formed by the combination of Oklahoma Territory and Indian Territory, the state of Oklahoma became the 46th state to enter the Union. Over the course of 1908 and 1909, many prominent Durant citizens and local citizen groups traveled to lobby for passage of the Durant Southeastern State Normal School Bill. Less than 1.5 years later, or after Oklahoma entered statehood, that bill passed, and Durant was designated as the location for a normal school to serve the 12-county region. 20 acres was procured for the building site. The school first opened its doors to students in June of 1909. That is what you said, right? To train high school graduates to become teachers by establishing teacher standards or norms. Until completion of its proposed new building, temporary facilities were used. And whereas in 1909, the Durant City Council voted to offer 20 years of free equipment, sewage, and waterworks services for the Southeastern Oklahoma Normal School, the city and its people understood an institution of higher learning would play an important role in the future of Durant and the surrounding region. And whereas Southeastern Oklahoma Normal School, with its rich Native American influence, is the foundation for secondary education in Southeastern Oklahoma. In 1909, the first summer enrollment brought in over 550 students and became one of the major industries in town. The name of Southeastern Normal School was changed to Southeastern Teachers College in 1920. The name again changed to Southeastern State College in 1939, and then to Southeastern Oklahoma State University, as we know it today, in 1974. Its enrollment today is over 4,000 students, representing 31 states and 20 foreign countries. Whereas today we are gathered to reflect and to celebrate the university's rich past and its promising future, to its past, we honor the bold leaders and citizens of our city who dared to dream of Durant becoming the location for a state normal school to serve Southeastern Oklahoma. We honor the school's significant contributions to the region, to the state, and to our nation. To its future, we celebrate the continued educational opportunities and the development of future generations of citizens who will continue to honor and advance the tradition and shared history of Southeastern and the surrounding communities. Now therefore, I, Jerry L. Tomlinson, the Mayor of the City of Durant, do hereby proclaim March 2013 as the official month for celebrating the founding of Southeastern Normal School within the City of Durant. I call upon all citizens of Durant to join in recognizing our heritage and the people and the organizations that preserve our city's past for the enjoyment of residents today and for the future. Let us commemorate the founding of our university. Thank you.
I don't know about you, but that just needs a great big amen, brother. That was so awesome. I felt like my heart was just going to keep beating and beating. I'm glad to be here today, and I'm glad all those people went before us. And I bet Will Durant is doing a little jig wherever he is. That was good stuff. Thank you, Mayor. This afternoon, we have the opportunity to welcome back to campus a speech education major who graduated in 1973 with a Bachelor of Arts degree, Mr. Gary Shearer. On January the 14th, 2011, Governor Fallon named Gary Shearer as Oklahoma's 6th Secretary of Environment. In addition to serving as the lead advisor on environmental matters, he is currently serving as Assistant Vice President for External Relations in OSU's Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources. Mr. Shearer served 4 consecutive terms in the Oklahoma House of Representatives. He was appointed by Governor David Walters to serve as Oklahoma's first Secretary of Agriculture. By my count, he has served with 4 different governors in a variety of capacities, as well as serving on numerous boards in the state of Oklahoma. I think we did very well getting you started in your career here. Can we take credit for some of that? Here today, on behalf of Governor Mary Fallon, please welcome Secretary of Environment, Gary Shearer.
I tell you, it is a very much of a privilege to be here with you today, and just driving into town and around the campus, Danny, it brings back some great memories to me in my days here in school. Mr. Thompson, you recognized my Uncle Leon. You know, I've had several different positions with governors, but I tell you, I'm just a very, very ordinary guy who's had some extraordinary opportunities. In my opinion, and always has been in our family, the great man is Leon Shearer. Uncle Leon has been such a mentor to me through the years. When I was here, it took me 2 hitches, and Danny would tell you a lot more about that. But it took me 2 hitches to get my degree, and I earned a bachelor's degree, and Danny says I'm lucky to have gotten a bachelor's degree even. But I had to take a hitch in Vietnam in between, and then when I came back, Uncle Leon, I had the focus that I should have had all along. And Danny, I want you and your daughter to stand too. Danny and I have been very close, my first cousin for many years, and Uncle Leon, as many of you know that have been here for a good number of years, built Shearer's Restaurant. I think it was the same year that I was born, Uncle Leon, 1948, or maybe you started in 47 but finished in 48. And I can remember when I was here as a student back in 68, and then again to finish up in 73, that it was the restaurant here in Durant, Oklahoma. Now, I'll have to admit, though, Uncle Leon, I'm sorry to say that I used to slip down to George's and grab a burger. Those were pretty good, too. But as I said, coming back to Southeastern brings back such great memories to me, and some, most all, I will say, are great memories, and then the memories of my late wife, Judith, who also graduated here at Southeastern. And Judith passed away almost 2 years ago now with a bout of cancer that she had fought bravely for 8 years. But it's an honor to be here and to be on the campus where she and I went to school and enjoyed this campus so much and had so many great friends that were here. Now to present the commendation from Governor Fallon. And being appointed by Governor Fallon, I am so honored to serve as Secretary of Environment under her. Governor Fallon and I have known each other for over 20 years and have worked very close in state government throughout that time. Of course, she spent 4 years in the United States Congress before coming back to run for governor. Governor's commendation is hereby presented to Southeastern Oklahoma State University in recognition of your 104th anniversary celebration on March 5, 2013. Southeastern State University in Durant, Oklahoma began in 1909 as Southeastern Normal School and has been the foundation for secondary education in Southeastern Oklahoma, with proud Native American influence, providing formal education to the citizens of this region. I celebrate with you the extraordinary history and educational and cultural contributions, this community of learners has contributed to the region, state, and nation, and look forward to its continuing to honor and advance the tradition and shared history of Southeastern and the surrounding communities. Congratulations, Mary Fallon, Governor of the great state of Oklahoma. Let me take those glasses off.
Secretary Shearer, thank you very much for coming to the meeting today. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, I'm about to be finished, so you better come on. I think he's going to tell us a peach story.
No. Something just occurred to me while I was sitting there. I see people out in the audience that have given so much to this university, and a lot of times people who give and give and give and give never really get the recognition that they deserve. So I just want to take this opportunity because, I hope I'm here next year talking with you, and I plan to be, but they might find somebody a lot more entertaining, and they can just use my book. But anyway, this lady behind me, it doesn't matter whether it's Miss Southeastern pageants, it doesn't matter if it's Founders Day, it doesn't matter if it's Spring Sports Day, it doesn't matter if it's inaugurations, and her committee for planning this day, deserves great appreciation. But this lady right here, for decades, has had the responsibility of emceeing and organizing all kinds of events like this at this university, and I just would like to recognize her, Vicki Hudson.
Thank you. I don't think he's even looked in his sack. He doesn't know what my present was. In just a moment, we will conclude today's program with the chorale singing the alma mater. Everyone is invited to the loft of the Glenn D. Johnson Student Union, where we will continue this celebration with the Peach Cook-Off Contest. We appreciate your attendance today. Would you please stand for the singing of our alma mater? At the conclusion, you will be dismissed.